Chapter 27. Are you mad? Will's voice rose in pitch as reacted to Ormond's statement. You think Malcolm will help you? He's a sworn enemy of your entire family. But Ormond merely shook his head, the effort seeming to take a lot out of him. Only if you believe in fairy tales, he said. I don't believe Malcolm is behind all this. I don't believe he's a sorcerer. For years the man worked as a healer, a herbalist, and a very good one. But then something went wrong and he disappeared from sight. People said he went into the forest and surrounded himself with dark forces and apparitions. What went wrong? Will asked, and Ormond shrugged. The minute he did so, he regretted it, giving vent to a little grunt of pain before he answered. Who knows, maybe somewhere along the line people started confusing his abilities with sorcery. It's happened before, you know. Someone develops a skill that's a little out of the ordinary, and before too long people start believing it's magic. He paused for a breath and looked meaningfully at Will. As a ranger, you should understand that. Will was forced to agree. It was exactly the way many people thought of rangers, and he realized he and Alice had already seen that a lot of Malcolm's so-called sorcery consisted of elaborate mechanical tricks. But still, can you afford to risk it? He asked. You're assuming an awful lot, after all. Ormond gave him a thin smile. There was not a great deal of amusement in it. The question is, can I afford not to risk it? Malcolm is the only person within hundreds of kilometers who might have the skill to recognize this drug and find an antidote. Without him, I'll sink into a coma and eventually die. Will frowned thoughtfully as he digested this statement. The castle lord was right, he realized. Malcolm was a last throw of the dice. There was no other way for Ormond to turn. The door opened to admit Xander. The moment that the secretary entered the office, Will saw the look on his face and knew he had bad news. My lord, I couldn't reach her. Karen's men are everywhere, he said. Ormond cursed as another seizure struck him. As Xander moved towards his lord, Will stepped to block his way. He felt a cold hand tighten round his hand. You mean they stopped you? He said, then added, with a scathing note of condemnation. You didn't even try to reach her, did you? The little secretary met his gaze unflinchingly. I didn't try once I saw them, because I knew they'd see me, and I didn't want to implicate the Lady Gwendolen, he said. Will reached out and grabbed the little man's jerkin in both hands, pulling him closer. You coward, he told him. What do you mean, implicate her? Xander still met his gaze without any sign of fear. He made no effort to break free from Will's grip. Think about it, Ranger. I'm seen hurrying to take some kind of message to Lady Gwendolen. Then within an hour the three of us escaped from the castle. Do you think Karen won't put two and two together and realize she's working with you? Slowly Will released his grip and the secretary stepped back, smoothing his crumpled collar. He was right, Will thought. Any attempt to warn Alice would only endanger her at the moment. Yet if she were to run into Buttle, or if Buttle recognized her, somehow, he would have to get word to her. I've got to help her, he said. Ormond shook his head wearily. It's too late for that, he said. If Xander's right and Karen's men are everywhere, he may be about to make his move. We have only a few minutes to get out of here. Will's anger boiled up and it overflowed. Is that really all you can think about? He demanded. Your own precious skin? Well, to hell with you. I don't run out on my friends when they need me. Ormond said nothing, but Will was surprised as Xander took a step forward towards him and laid a hand on his arm. Lord Ormond is right, he said quietly. Your best chance is to get him out of here right away. If you're caught in the castle, there'll be nothing to stop Karen killing you. Your friend and Lord Ormond, don't you see? Will hesitated. Deep down he knew that the mission came first and that Xander was right. His first task now that he realized Ormond was not a treble was to get him to safety, but to do that meant leaving Alice in danger. You're wasting time, Ormond said quietly. Look, your friend may be caught, or she may not, but if they catch us too, there'll be no reason for Kieran to keep her alive, particularly once he learns she's a courier. But if he doesn't have me, he can't claim the castle, and he'll need to hedge his bets. You can even offer to trade me for Gwendolen if you want. That'll ensure he looks after her. He paused, letting Will think about it. I assume Gwendolen isn't her real name, he added. It's Alice, Will said distractedly. He was thinking about what Ormond had said. It made sense. Once they were all prisoners, Kieran would have no reason to let any of them live. But if he and Ormond could get away, he could use Ormond as a bargaining chip. As he had the thought, he wondered briefly if he would really trade the castle lord for Alice. He decided that if it came to it, he would. All right, he said abruptly. We'll do it. He paused, gathering his thoughts, then issued orders rapidly. Get your things together, he told Ormond. We're travelling light, so keep it to the bare essentials. Warm clothes, a good cloak, and boots. We'll be sleeping rough, I should think. I'll go to the stables and saddle 2 horses. He paused, glanced at the secretary, and amended the statement. 3 horses. Xander, can you get Lord Ormond to the keep's eastern entrance without attracting too much attention? The eastern entrance was the one that had opened onto the courtyard, facing the stable. The little secretary nodded. There's a servant's staircase. We'll use that, he said. Will nodded agreement. Good. Be there in 10 minutes. I'll have the horses ready inside the stable, and when I see you, I'll bring them across. Then what? Ormond asked. Then we ride like hell out of the gate, Will said. The other man's face twisted in a sardonic grin, in spite of his pain. It's not exactly a classic example of ingenuity, is it? He said. Will shrugged. If you like, we'll dig a secret tunnel, or we could wear clever disguises, but by the time we do that, we'll all be dead. Our best bet is to move quickly and surprise them. I assume some of your men are still on the walls. Ormond nodded. Some will be my men, but not many. All right, Will glanced at Xander. Get him out of here now, and use those back stairs. If Kieran and his men come calling, I don't want you two trapped in here. But if they can't find you, it might buy us a little time. They might not realize we're on to them yet. 10 minutes, he repeated. Both other men nodded agreement. He hurried to the door, opened it a crack, and peered out. There was nobody in the outer room. Xander had apparently dismissed the sergeant major and his men. Will crossed quickly to the exterior door, checked again, and went out. The corridor outside was deserted. There were 2 guards at the end, but aside from an incurious glance in his direction, they took no notice of him. Forcing himself to walk calmly, he headed for the staircase and started down. His nurse shrieked at him as he crossed the main hall and then the courtyard outside. Every fibre of his being wanted to run, to get to the stables as quickly as he could, but he forced himself to walk casually, to avoid attracting attention to himself, waiting all the time for some sign that the alarm had been raised. Once inside the dim stable building, however, all pretense of casualness disappeared. He sprinted to Tug's stall, grabbing his saddle and bridle from the rail alongside. Both Tug and the dog heard him coming and were alerted by his behavior. Tug stood still as Will tossed the saddlecloth and saddle onto the back and fastened the girths. The dog stood guard, sensing that something was out of the ordinary. Once Tug was saddled and ready, Will took the competent parts of his bow from the pack saddle and hurriedly clipped them together. His quiver of arrows was hanging neatly nearby, and he slung it over his saddle pommel, then led Tug out of the stall. He hastily checked the adjacent stalls for 2 suitable mounts. His own pack horse was a sturdy enough animal, but it would be too slow if there were any pursuit. There were several battle horses available, but he ignored them. He didn't think Ormond or Xander would be capable of handling the massive beasts. He noticed a good-looking bay mare earlier, and he led her out now, hurriedly putting saddle and bridle on her. She was calm and docile, but she looked as if she'd have a decent turn of speed. He tethered her beside Tug and hurried down the line of stalls looking for a 3rd horse. At the far end of the stable, he found a grey gelding that wasn't too skittish. He saddled it, then checked the girth straps on the bay and the gelding. It wouldn't do to have the saddle slip when Ormond and Xander tried to mount. With the horses ready, he moved on the stable entrance and eased onto the side of the stable eased. Peering through the narrow gap towards the keep, he saw a brief movement at the eastern door and realized it was Xander, standing just inside the half-open doorway in the shadows of the interior. A dark figure was just visible behind him. Ormond, he hoped, then realized it could well be one of Kieran's men. He shrugged. There was only one way to find out. Fine, he muttered. He glanced at the dog, who was staring expectantly up at him, ears pricked and eyes questioning. Follow, he said, then added, silent. He reinforced the word command with the signal he taught her. The dog, content now that she knew what was expected of her, dropped to the haunches, ready to move. Hastily, Will fastened a lead rope to the other 2 horses, tying the end to Tug's saddle. Then he moved quickly to the door once more, easing onto the side wide open. He ran back, swung quickly up onto Tug's saddle, and touched the little horse with his heel. There was a momentary drag on the lead rope as the mare and the ganstrad resisted the pull. Then they were cantering out onto the cobbled behind Tug, moving already at a brisk trot. The dog slipped alongside beside Tug, a black and white shadow running belly low to the ground.